Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Planning and Development Control Committee meeting. My name is Nico Suslus. I'm the chair of the committee. Just to remind everyone of a few housekeeping points, the meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube channel, and by participating, you are consenting to being recorded. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the meeting calmly by the nearest exit, which is through the doors on the right and out of the main entrance. Toilets can be found through the door at the back of the room on my left. And please can officers and all other speakers introduce themselves before speaking for the first time. And everyone make sure to use your microphones. We'll make sure to show you how to do this. For members of the public that come on to speak, if you'd like to make your contribution and then head back to the gallery. We have the one screen today showing the presentations. Members of the committee should have the presentations in their council inboxes as well. We move on to item number 1, which is apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillors Nimmo and Councillor Walsh. Item number 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Trey, you will be speaking as a ward councillor against the Phoenix Academy application, and that means that the process is that once you've spoken, you'll leave the room and then return after the vote has been taken. Correct. Thank you very much. Item number 3, the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of March. Are the minutes of the previous meeting agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. The minutes are agreed. Just before we start the first substantive item, we have a lengthy agenda, quite a lot of speakers. So we'll just urge committee members and some of the councillors that will be speaking and have unlimited time to be as concise as possible, while also covering the points. Right, we move on to item number 4, which is the Phoenix Academy item. And Neil Eggerton is the presenting officer. Neil, when you're ready, please introduce the presentation. Do you have it? That made it. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Thank you, Chair. So the first item relates to Phoenix Academy. And the proposal is for the demolition of a number of existing buildings and structures on the site and a comprehensive phase redevelopment of the existing school site. 2 new residential buildings ranging from 2 to 8 stories in height and containing 307 flats to be rated. 90 of those units would be social rent affordable housing. The 1 school building ranging from 2 to 5 stories, providing 8,091 square meters of educational floor space, supporting up to 900 total students. The alteration of existing buildings on site, together with private and communal amenity space, landscaping, car parking, cycle parking, and other associated works. The site is shown here, highlighted in red. Phoenix Academy is a secondary school and 6th form that occupies a site of some 2.96 hectares on the northern side of the curve, with access also being available from Fontaine Road. The main school buildings, as you can see, there are arranged around a courtyard area, varying height up to 5 stories. Most of the buildings date from the mid-20th century, but the 6th form building centre, considerably newer, was built around about 2010. There's some aerial photographs here, so you can see the sites. You can see the school buildings here. This long block I'm indicating with the cursor is the 6th form centre, and then you see to the north there's sports facilities and pitches, and large grassed area to the west of the site, behind the properties on Milfoil Street. The site is located within the Old Oakenwell Conservation Area and the Cleverley Estate Conservation Area, and the Grade 2 listed former Wormholt Library in centre lies about 200 metres northwest of the site. So there's the view from the south looking toward the side. You can see here the larger, more modern sixth form centre that was built in the early 2010, and the rest of the remaining school buildings are shown here. See the grassed area to the west, cricket nets, and another external play area to the west, which have not been used for some time. Poor condition, as is the area to the northwest corner. There's an athletic field, and there's again although not part of this proposal, you've got the Phoenix Fitness Centre at Grange and the number of sports halls and Cambridge School to the south of the site. Again, this is a further view showing the courtyard area around the old buildings. So here we have a plan showing that you can see here, the image, which shows the existing sport facilities areas, the grassed areas, and the existing buildings on the site. The red line demarcates the elements of site, so it's clear that the Janet Adgoki Phoenix Centre and the Cambridge School are not part of this proposal. And then the existing site plan shows the existing buildings and when they were built, all the purple buildings of the existing school buildings. This image, the buildings that are highlighted in pink are to be demolished, and then the building that's there in yellow would be demolished at a much later stage. These were demolished at the initial phase. And there's the master plan for the site. You can see the site effectively divides into, so you've got a central road here, and on the right hand side, all the school buildings. So building number 5 are being retained, so that's the sixth form centre, and then the new school buildings are with a number 2, and the central courtyard to the school would now move over here to the eastern side, and you have sports fields to the north of the site, and then on the other side you have the residential buildings that are to be built. So 2 buildings, one to the north, so this shape here, and then that will contain the affordable housing that's proposed. And then there's obviously fringe gardens around the sides, hard standing in the central courtyard areas for the residential blocks. The majority of the residential units will be in the southernmost block. School entrance would be here onto the central corridor, then into the building, and the residential entrance would be on the west side of the curve. Got some 3D views. So this is showing you the southwest elevation from the curve on the left hand side, and then the other image is view from the new living street between the residential and the school site, access from the curve. Again, 3D views from the southwest here, which indicates the heights of the buildings. So you have the existing surrounding properties, 2-story here to the west of the site. Then the site will have 3- and 4-story buildings on this close proximity, stepping up 5 stories, 6 stories, 7 to an 8 story towards the centre part of the side. A 6-story on the northern elevation with an 8-story building here. Buildings to the rear, there's blocks of flats and 4-story building immediately to the north. Then building here at the back where my cursor is, that's a 7-story building. So these are the south elevations as seen from the curve. You can see the brickwork proposed and the design of style, projecting balconies here for the units and the glazing. And then on the right hand side or to the east, you can see the lower scale Phoenix Academy buildings, both the new buildings here and retained building. These are the elevations, south elevation of buildings A and B, which are the northernmost block of the residential development. Again, keep a very similar design and style. This is the north elevation of the southern buildings buildings D and C, although they are all joined. Again, you can see the red brick and the lighter brickwork. You see the heights rising up. And then there's the eastern elevation, buildings F and E, which are the main residential block. This will be facing towards the school site. And the east elevation of building D goes to the north. This is the west elevation, buildings A and B and the townhouses. Excuse me. The residential west elevation of building C to be looking towards the residential properties behind the site within the old Wormholt Street. And then we have a ground floor plan of the residential blocks. So it just shows the layout of the flats. So see there's five flats along this elevation in this block, 4 there. And then a lot of the flats, the majority of the flats are dual aspect, although there are some where it is not possible. And it's the typical upper floor plan of the residential blocks. Again, you can see the units. You can see here that there are a number of those single aspect, but quite a few are double aspect as well. And you can see the layout of the access corridors there indicated. There's some 3D views of these schools. The southeastern elevation, the entrance on the curve. See the pale brickwork, very similar to what's been proposed for the housing. And then you can see the existing 6-form buildings behind them. And then these are 3D views from again, southeast, from the southeast, sorry. You can see the existing 6-form building and the new entrance block and teaching block. And C would be a sports block. You see some of the sports facilities above. These the elevations of the school. Both, excuse me, the west elevation here and the eastern elevation below. And then the north and south elevations of the school are shown here. So this would be the south elevation facing onto the curve. School with the main entrance block, etc., and the 6-form block. The ground floor plan of the school set out here. You see the classrooms and the makeup of the spaces. And again, the first floor plan, various classrooms set out. And the second floor plan, again, sorry, very sensitive there. And the third floor plan, see there. So the The scheme proposes, say, 90 affordable housing units. They'd be a mixture of 10% would be one bed, 40% two bed, 35% three bed, and 15% four bed. Oh, sorry, those are the policy targets, HO5. The scheme provides 11% in terms of one beds, does not meet the policy 85 target in terms of two beds. It's 13% lower. For three beds, it's 5% higher than the policy target. And for the four beds, again, it's around about 7%, a variance of 7%. So, yeah. The officers have some concerns about the affordable housing. It's all proposed as social rent, whereas our policy would normally seek a mixture of both social rent and intermediate housing. So there's no intermediate housing proposed here. This diagram demonstrates the existing sports facilities on site. So you have Muggers on the northern boundary side, provide many soccer, netball, and tennis courts. Then there's allotments sort of here, which provide opportunity for habitat areas. The existing tree line to the north of the site, which acts as a noise buffer. There's a Muga there, and there's again, some which is not currently used and in poor condition. There's another sports facilities here, which again, as shown in the image earlier, are underused. So in terms of the proposed development, you have the existing Muga retained and improved. You have another sports area here, which we provided, and then there'd be an outdoor classroom. There'd be storage sheds here, heat pumps, etc. There's some small playing fields there, as well as a student exploration area, sort of here where the cursor is. Over here where the residential is, then there'll be the central courtyards, both of these blocks, and then there'll be some wild breeding frame, and an ecological journey and space sort of on the western boundary, and so further planting here. This is the view of the proposed southern external amenity space. See there within the block, surrounded by the residential properties. So officers have also concerns looking at the residential accommodation being provided in terms of daylight and sunlight, and as well as the impacts on the neighbouring properties. Say to the west, predominantly two-storey in height, and there are sort of four-storey block here, rising to a seven-storey block further to the north, and three-storey block there. In terms of the accommodation that's been provided, I mean, for block being the first floor, concerns the diagram here shows internal daylight to the rooms of the block. Now the red areas, pinkish areas, or whether there is not satisfactory provision of that natural light, and the yellow is where it does meet, is acceptable. So officers have concerns about there are a number that do meet the target. There are a significant number where internal luminance is concerned. And again, in terms of the external amenity areas, the image on the right is availability of sunshine in the summer months. So you can see the courtyard to the north, largely well lit, as is the one to the south. There are some bits of overshadowing, but in the winter months, there's much worse effect. And So we do have concerns about the cumulative impact in terms of daylight and sunlight with regards to these properties and their amenity space. Let's say, sorry, the slide should be earlier. The artificial grass pitch in the Muga will be retained. That's the north of the site, with the latter upgraded to include basketball courts and reintroduced tennis. Existing lighting provision maintained. The netball will be relocated. The new sports hall, if I can show you back up, the new, sorry, the new sports hall, which is here, is going to be a benefit because if all other matters were considered acceptable, we were looking to approve, then we would seek for that to be made available for perhaps external use, subject to agreement. Some of the Sport England have strongly supported the principle of community use agreements. But at present, the concern that we do have, and Sport England have raised concerns that the sports provision is not, they do not consider that to be acceptable, does not replace what is there currently. So there are concerns both from officers and Sport England with regards to the level and quality of the sports provision. But the concern now to its impact on the conservation areas, have some image. I mean, that's the existing junction of Sundew Avenue and Milfoil Street as it existing, and then as proposed, you can see the school and the residential development, stepping up behind here. Likewise, the view of curve and Orchid Street at the moment, and then you can see here the blue line sort of showing the development. There's been quite an impact on that view. And again, here from Wormhole Park, southern entrance gate. This is the area looking for. And you can see the school stepping up there, through buildings, her school and the residential stepping up and back to that view. And this, from the centre of Wormhole Park, the existing situation. And then you can see you see the residential development standing up there on that view. From Wormhole Park again, views from the playground, existing view and proposed view. You can see the development popping up above the existing levels that are shown there. So on balance, officers have weighed up the benefits and the concerns about the development, and our view is that the application should be refused. We feel the benefits do not outweigh the harm. So there's 8 reasons for refusal. It's summarised here. So there's design in terms of development by reading of design, scale, positioning, overbearing and development of the character appearance of the townscape. Would be an overdevelopment of the site, introduce tall buildings, which have disruptive and harmful impact on the skyline, this part of the borough. The heritage, for a second reason, would be the proposed development due to scale, massing and visual prominence fails to preserve the character and appearance of the Old Oak and Wormhole conservation area. The taller built form would appear out of keeping with the established low-rise estate character and erode the area's openness, resulting in less than substantial harm at the low mid-range of the scale of less than substantial harm. The heritage and public benefits would not outweigh this harm. The proposed development and quality of accommodation, by reason of its layout and form, would fail to provide adequate quality of accommodation for future occupiers. Significant areas of the external shared amenity space would not receive suitable levels of light to provide functional or attractive recreation spaces, and a significant number of the rooms proposed, particularly the ground first floor levels, would not receive adequate levels of light to provide high quality accommodation. It's also considered that the development by reason of its height, bulk and massing would result in harmful reductions in the levels of daylight and sunlight of nearby residential properties, particularly to the north of the Calyx building and Hater House. The height and massing would also result in increased overshadowing and an overbearing enclosing form of development from these neighbourhood windows and garden areas. Regarding sports facility, the development fails to demonstrate why existing sports facilities and open spaces are surplus to requirements, that replacement sports facilities are of superior quality, or that there are other clear benefits resulting from the proposal that outweigh their loss. Affordable housing, the development did not adequately justify the provision of affordable housing, which would fail to meet adopted requirements in terms of the amount, tenure, mix and location of the units. And biodiversity play space result in the loss of on-site habitats of moderate value to not be replaced on site in accordance with the biodiversity net gain trading rules. The development would result in the loss of a category B tree, which no mitigation has been proposed. There's also inconsistency between the tree surveys and documentation of the landscaping statement. The urban greening factor calculation, the BNG assessment is such that the accuracy of these calculations cannot be verified, resulting in a potential failure to achieve the value set out in the application documentation. And in terms of school parking, the development by reason of over provision of parking spaces for the school without robust justification is considered to be unacceptable and would result in vehicular movements as well as having an impact on highway conditions to the detriment of sustainable transport modes. I would just point out the addendum. I've got a, sorry, there's a couple of things there. Since the report was published, there were additional letters of support received. So they have been listed here in the addendum, along with additional correspondence from the applicants, which is summarised there where they flagged up their concerns with the report. And the letter is circulated to committee members by the Academy's Trust in support of their proposals. Additionally, then there are, due to the additional letters of support being received, the numbers have been changed within the report. Furthermore, we have altered a couple of figures there with relation to paragraph 30.8, 30.9, which relates to carbon offset. And then paragraphs, page 994, unfortunately, the paragraph numbering went astray, so that has had to be renumbered, which is indicated there. And finally, since the report was published, the building safety regulator had responded following consultation with HSE, and so their comments have been added to the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil, for the presentation. I should say the addendum has been circulated with members and will be published with the minutes of the meeting. So we're gonna hear from some speakers. First, we have Mr. Julian Vallis to speak in objection. Mr. Vallis, is he here? If you'd like to take your seat just over there with a microphone, and you will have 4 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, just if you want to press the microphone so it goes green. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay. I thank the chair and members of the committee. I speak for the community as a resident and as treasurer of the WRA. We recognise the Phoenix Academy as an urban brownfield site, a rare opportunity for development. With the right approach, a master plan can be co-produced with the council and community. The site can deliver a win-win for everyone. We engage constructively at every stage, even offered viable alternatives. So we want to be very clear. We're not here to block development, but we demand Phoenix is actually developed with us, not over us. Procedure, however, calls us for us to consider the application and submit it before us. This application is the wrong. Sorry. Thanks to local heroes, the strength of the community feeling is clear. But I must clarify that the report has made a procedural error in treating my objection as a petition. I wrote it as an individual, while 717 co-signed my petition, my objection. Therefore, this application has 752 objections, individual objections, against 60 in support, which is 93% opposition. This is a significant material consideration for the committee. The application was created in isolation. The school draws relatively few pupils from the ward. It is not as embedded in the community as it should be. We contend the applicant failed to accurately gauge community sentiment, consistently ignored sustained constructive engagement, failed to properly consider impacts beyond the school boundary. The applicant's logic effectively seeks to deprive us of our light, our heritage, our safety, and our breath, just to make an outstanding school bigger. So while there are many others, let me address these 4 factors. First, light. 259 homes, severe loss of light to create 307 new flats. That's a net gain of 48 well-lit units. That's a wholesale failure of residential amenity. Second, heritage, and this is the most important. The application requires the total destruction of an award-winning building, the caretaker's cottage, for the construction of a 10-story monolith. In turn, this monolith fundamentally destroys the character and setting of Wormholt and Old Oak Conservation Area. We contend, by definition, this constitutes substantial harm under MPPF paragraph 201, not less than substantial harm as the planning officer recommended. Third, safety. We and the planning officer agree this creates an unacceptable overlooking into play spaces. Under the Education Act, as you know, the committee have a statutory duty to safeguard children. We cannot, must not, trade their safety for profit. Fourth, breath. By failing mandatory BNG rules and removing mature trees, the development strips away our green lungs. The planning officer assessment, to whom we also extend our thanks, confirms all the other pillars raised in our objection. The application is not a case of 1 or 2 policy conflicts, but it's actually a full spectrum of statutory failure. The minor public benefit, expanding a school in an area of education provision, is currently sufficient, simply does not outweigh the grossly disproportionate and catastrophic harm. Chair and members of the committee, this is not a rational outcome. We respectfully request the committee stand with us, support the officer's recommendation to refuse permission and correct the report on record for the GLA regarding the 752 objections and to upgrade the analysis to substantial harm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to take your seat back at the gallery, and if I may call on Mr. Raphael Lerder to also approach. Mr. Lerder, you'll also have 4 minutes. Sorry, if you'd like to press the button, microphone will go green.
Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Raphael Lerda. I live in Calix Building, only 40 meters from the seat where Calix Building is the Phoenix Academy, just in front. The 8-story residential block and some residents are closer than 48 meters. I choose my flight for the light and the open view. If this 8-story building is built, it will block a large part of my view and take almost all my sunlight during mostly the winter. All the windows in Calix Building are facing south. The proposal will bring 307 new homes and 100 more residents. The 283 bus no longer exists. It was withdrawn in December 2025 and replaced by the 72 2 bus on different routes, which is less efficient and already always full. We have almost no shop, except one small Sainsbury, and the subway is 15 minutes away. This will put more pressure on the limit infrastructure. Something I didn't see anywhere else before. I'm really sad about the demolition of the caretaker house, built only 15 years ago and cost more than £300,000 public money from Hammersmith and Fulham. This is waste of public money. The applicant said to create the transition. Taller building in White City is not true. In White City, the highest blocks are 6-story, and in Walmart, they are only 4-story. The reality is tall buildings are in completely different area. I propose the applicant to look again to the actual map of the Hammersmith ward. Once this land is sold, it's gone forever, and that will be really bad for the future of the students. The Department of Education has not approved the sale of the land yet. I fully support the official recommendation to refuse this application. The scale of this project go against the policy BE1. It will damage Walmart's conservative area. I ask the committee to refuse this application. Residents like me can continue to enjoy their home. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much. And now, if I may ask Mr. Lawrence Foley and Mark Smith on behalf of applicant to come approach, and there will be 5 minutes between you, or whichever way you want to share the 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mark Smith. I'm the Development Director at London Square. We started working with the Phoenix Academy back in 2020, and clearly the world has changed dramatically over the last 6 years. The Academy itself has gone from a failing school to an outstanding rated school, whilst their buildings continue to decay. As a dedicated London developer, we pride ourselves in being able to unlock challenging sites where others would walk away. And our application delivers the necessary £42 million required to rebuild the school. We've engaged with the Academy to ensure their requirements for the redevelopment could be met and funded from the residential development, as there's no other source of funding for this scheme. We spent 18 months of pre-application work with the Council during 2024 and 2025 that dramatically changed our original 12-storey pre-application scoping scheme to a predominantly 6-storey courtyard scheme, where we've tried to directly respond to the design officer comments, the conservation area, and our neighbours. We've also prioritised the highest affordable housing need in the borough: family, social rented homes. The scheme provides 90 brand new, genuinely affordable homes, including 36 3-bedroom homes and 20 4-bedroom homes. Most of the schemes being brought forward today have little or no such housing of this type, particularly with the current economic environment. So when we received notification out of the blue on the 27th of March, the day before Easter, that our application was going to be recommended for refusal without any prior feedback from officers since its submission in last September, we were more than disappointed, especially as the GLA Stage 1 report on the application received in February was highly supportive of the scheme, including the design. So therefore, I asked the committee to consider a deferral of this application to enable us to formally respond to the officer's report and enable areas of concern to be clarified and addressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. My name is Lawrence Foley. I'm the Chief Executive of Future Academies. Future Academies, obviously, and specifically Phoenix Academy, are disappointed with the officer recommendation today. As Mark said, we were given very little notice ahead of the committee meeting today. Many of the questions that we have of the planning team remain unanswered. We also have not been provided in good time with important information, including full details of the objections to the scheme from key consultees such as Sporting Bend. And so, as Mark has already said, and as I would echo, for these reasons, we respectfully ask that the committee considers deferring this application. We think this would allow us sufficient time for this information to be shared, properly considered and responded to. That being said, throughout this design process, our goal has always been to demonstrate the acute need the school has for these critical improvements. This is not about expanding an outstanding school. This is about matching an outstanding school with a facility that it deserves. Anyone who's visited Phoenix will be able to see firsthand the incredible work of our pupils and staff. That team effort, as Mark said, resulted in an outstanding Ofsted rating 2 years ago. But more than that, it's giving lives of choice and opportunity to our young people, one of whom we have with us today. The education that Phoenix provides is an asset to the community. The building clearly is not. And this has all been achieved against a backdrop of facilities that don't match the quality of teaching that the school provides or the aspirations of our students. To put it as plainly as I can, I would be more than happy, would be delighted if my children went to a school like Phoenix Academy, except when I enter the building, I feel that it doesn't properly cater to the children that we have in the building. You'll see in the nearly 100 representations made to the planning portal by parents and pupils that they share our views. And if we had asked the 590 pupils in our school to write letters of support, they would have done so. I'd urge you to read their words yourselves and to give them the weight they deserve. Throughout this process, and including in parts of the officer's report, there's been an abiding sentiment that all parties support the improvements to the school, but that we should take a different approach. In some cases, that has even extended to people offering opinions on what we should be doing to bring an alternative scheme forward. Be it a site-wide master plan, which includes land that we do not own, going to the DfE for funding, which the DfE have told us plainly they will not provide, and members here will know that many of the schools in this constituency currently have RAC in them, and all Treasury funding which has been set aside for improvements to school estates will be directed to those schools, or indeed linking our development to another site entirely. To be really clear about this, we've explored our options exhaustively over the past 7 years, and an alternative approach to unlocking the funding needed to provide this building is not possible. We appreciate the in-principle support, but we have to be focused on the reality of what we can deliver for our students. I hope this enables members to save themselves any debate on that matter this evening, and rest assured that we have explored every possible alternative. These proposals represent the best chance our school has of securing the more than £40 million that we need to make the improvements to the academy. Members will be fully aware that these costs are spiralling upwards each month, linked to inflation, and we do not have the luxury of a wait-and-see approach when it comes to the future of the education that our children deserve. We're delighted that through our partnership with London Square, we can also support the delivery of new homes that include nearly 40% of those homes at social rent, many of them family homes. One of the biggest problems that we have in central London is recruiting teachers and encouraging them to stay when they want to have families. This scheme would provide family homes for teachers like the ones that work in our schools. I'd urge members again, if you're currently unwilling to support the school's proposals, to consider a deferral of this decision to enable us to engage properly with officers after 5 months with no dialogue whatsoever. This will provide us with the time to properly consider how we move forward in light of some of the content contained within the report. And bluntly, receiving news at this point in the year, just before students are about to sit their public examinations, would be something that would hugely deflate the school, something that I would urge members to take into consideration. Deferral will provide us with the opportunity to give our students, your constituents, clarity on how the school moves forward. I'd like to hand over to Alia, our Year 12 pupil, who I believe has been working some time to speak.
Thank you, Alia. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Alia, and I'm here to talk briefly as a Phoenix student for the past 6 years, and also about why this project is important to both me and my school community. I have managed to achieve fantastic GCSE grades because of the brilliant teachers giving me 5, 6 great lessons a day, 5 times a week. You may or you may not know this, but Phoenix has not always been a school that children and the local community can be proud of. But thanks to the incredible work of staff and students for over nearly a decade, children now leave our school frequently, having gained national leading results and being able to take their next steps in life. This hasn't always been the case for Phoenix students, but now it's the expectation. More than ever before, children now feel proud to walk down the streets and walk through our school gates. But this is despite the fact that their school building is in places falling apart completely around them. I'm going to be honest. A huge part of our school is in terrible states. Large areas are out of bounds, classrooms are freezing in the winter and boiling in the summer. There are holes in the ceilings and chips in the floors. Despite this, as I previously mentioned, the quality of the education and the outcomes at the school go from strength to strength every single year. The transformation has honestly been nothing short of magical. But I suppose I'm here to explain to you that magic shouldn't have to happen within crumbling walls. A big part of our success as a school, come from our renewed connection with our parents and our local community. A fundamental part of this plan is for members of the community to be able to take advantage of state-of-the-art facilities in both sports, music, and for third space venues for community groups. This should only be seen as a win-win situation, where the children of White City and East Acton get an inspiring space within which to enjoy some of the very best secondary school education all around, and where the local community benefits from shared access to the site after school hours. Ultimately, the children of Phoenix Academy have waited too long for local decision makers to start taking the quality of their school environment seriously. It's time we change that. And being realistic, I will myself be able to experience the benefits of this proposed development. But both of my brothers, the current Phoenix student in year 7 and the future Phoenix student in year 3, will stand to benefit from this immeasurably. Quite simply, we shouldn't be holding back their prospects. At a time where central government is already spending billions on retrospectively fixing the mistakes of the past with the rat crisis, we have proposed a creative solution to a problem that no one has so far offered to solve for us. That's why I am here this evening, seeking your support for our school community and our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. I'd like to take your seats back in the gallery. We now have a succession of councillors. Councillor Trey, if you would like to be the first. Thank you. And you'll have unlimited time, but of course, would appreciate brevity.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak on this important application in my ward of Wormholt. I want to be clear from the outset, objecting to this application is not objecting to the future of Phoenix School and the modernisation planned by future academies and London Square, which is a hugely valuable contribution to the local community. The students are our precious future and they deserve the best. Cheers. That is precisely why I stand with residents in objecting to this proposal as it currently stands, because this is not the best we can do, and our children and community deserve no less. Having visited the site and attended the public presentation, I fully recognise the need for modernisation, and I'm cognizant of the financial implications. To rebut any presumption of NIMBYism, I am not opposed to housing on the site. It's something that has worked well elsewhere. But this development will shape a major part of Wormholt for generations. It is a once-in-a-generation opportunity and risks being squandered through a rushed and poorly considered process. The central problem is not simply design, which my colleagues will talk to in time. It is trust, engagement, and the failure to bring residents with you. If Phoenix School and the estate of new homes is to sit at the heart of this neighbourhood, then its future must be developed with the community, not imposed upon it. The consultation process has fallen short. Holding the main consultation in July on 2 consecutive Wednesday evenings during the peak holiday period inevitably excluded many residents. Only after sustained lobbying was a further session held on a Saturday right at the beginning of September. That does not feel like proactive engagement in good faith. I was told at the presentation I attended that this scheme had gone through many earlier design iterations. Yet none of these options were shared publicly. Residents were effectively presented with a finished plan and asked to comment on minor details. Much was made of the echoing of the Wormholt arch design in the fascia of the building. And there were 2 options of colour for the fascia, neither of which was London stock. That was the sum total of opinion seeking. That is not meaningful consultation. That is throwing sprats. That is consultation after the fact, not genuine collaboration. National planning policy is clear. Early, meaningful engagement with communities should weigh positively in favour of an application, Equally, where there has not been genuine effort to engage, that should be a material consideration against it. I ask the committee to take that seriously tonight. I urge the committee to refuse this application as it stands. Encourage the applicant to return with a better scheme, developed in honest partnership with residents, with true co-production at its heart. That should include a formal resident steering group drawing on existing associations and local voices, so community expertise helps shape the final design. Public realm, traffic impact, materials and long-term benefits. Engage those 752 people who have lodged their objection. That is how you build not just a school, not just houses, but civic pride and lasting support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trehi. As per the legal advice, you will now need to exit the meeting, but thank you very much for coming. We then have Councillor Perez.
Good evening, all. Yes, my name is Councilor Natalia Perez, and I'm a councillor for White City Ward. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee, and thank you for your time and careful consideration of this application. First of all, I would like to say that I support the ambition to improve Phoenix Academy and to deliver much needed social housing. However, my objection is to the impact of this particular scheme in its current form. As we've heard, my colleagues have spoken about the lack of genuine consultation, and other fellow councillors will speak about the impact on the conservation area. I want to focus on the significant and demonstrable harm it would cause to the living conditions of neighboring residents. A total of 94 individual neighbor representations were submitted, including 34 formal objections and well over 700 residents supporting the objection drafted by the Wormhole Residents Association. Concerns raised by objectors consistently point to serious and unacceptable impacts on residential amenity. The most critical issue is the severe impact on neighbors' day-to-day living conditions. Residents have identified substantial losses of daylight and sunlight, with some reporting reductions of up to 44.9% vertical sky component and close to 50% reductions to key habitable rooms and gardens. These losses would materially diminish natural light within homes and significantly reduce the usability and enjoyment of private outdoor spaces. In addition, the scale and proximity of the proposed 8-story building would create an overwhelming sense of enclosure and loss of outlook for neighboring 2-story homes. The development would introduce a dominant build form that is wholly out of proportion with its immediate context, resulting in oppressive living conditions for adjacent residents. Privacy impacts are also a major concern. Widespread objections highlight direct overlooking from balconies into private gardens, living spaces, and even school playgrounds. This represents a clear and harmful intrusion into residents' privacy and sense of security. These physical impacts are compounded by increased noise, activity, and disturbance associated with a development of this scale, alongside long-term servicing and traffic pressures. Residents have also raised concerns about prolonged construction impacts, including noise, dust, and disruption, which would further erode residential amenity over an extended period. Taken together, these impacts point to a permanent and significant reduction in quality of life for neighboring occupants, affecting access to light, privacy, tranquility, and overall well-being. The cumulative effect is a clear deterioration in living conditions that conflicts with core planning principles requiring developments to protect residential amenity. For these reasons, I strongly object to the proposal and urge the committee to refuse this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perez. And finally, we have Councillor Schmidt.
Chair, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. I want to begin not with objection, though, but with words of support. Phoenix Academy is a remarkable school. Over recent years, it's made exceptional progress, dramatically improving outcomes and raising aspirations. The staff and leadership deserve enormous credit. They've achieved all this while working in buildings that do need to be improved at a time when there is no government funding available to do that. These are not easy conditions in which to educate children, and when I speak tonight, I do so as someone who both desperately wants to see improvements to the school and understands that this can only be funded through a mixed development. I also want to be clear that the social housing provision in this scheme is something I very much welcome. Our area faces a housing crisis that is visible on every street. Families in temporary accommodation, households living in desperate overcrowding, years on waiting lists. The social rent homes proposed here represent the kind of provision that we need, and I support that ambition wholeheartedly. So the temptation is just pressing ahead with this scheme. But this is a once-in-a-generation chance to shape a huge section of the Wormhole area. With that in mind, and with the problems entailed in this application, I am objecting. There are 3 reasons which I and my colleagues set out in our written objection, and you've heard from Councillors Trey and Perez on the first 2. So I'll focus on the third, the fact that the scheme is insufficiently sensitive to the conservation area it sits in. Residents in Old Oak and in the Wormhole conservation areas face a particular reality that I suspect many on this committee are familiar with. If a homeowner on the curve wants to put up a modest extension, change their windows, or alter the appearance of their front garden, they will be told that they must respect the character of the area. They must use appropriate materials. They must not harm the setting. Applications are routinely refused for relatively minor works that fall short of these standards. That is the bargain residents enter into when they live in a conservation area. Your property rights are constrained, but in return, the character of your neighborhood is protected for you, for your neighborhoods, and for future generations. It cannot be right that individual residents are held to strict account for small-scale changes, while a major development of this scale is brought forward in a way that pays insufficient regard to those same conservation principles. The Wormhole area is not heritage for heritage's sake. It represents something quite specific. It was built by London County Council as part of a deliberate attempt to provide healthy, dignified homes for working people in a planned parkland setting. The proposal before us is clearly not in keeping with that area, not only in height, but also in design. The council has a duty to pay special attention to the preservation and enhancement of conservation areas. I do not believe this scheme satisfies that duty. And that brings me back to Councillor Trey's points on the consultation. Because in a conservation area, the requirements for sensitivity, care, and community involvement should be greater, not less. Of course, we can't let the conservation area prevent any changes to the school site, but it does mean we need to take extra care when we do so. And in particular, it means we need to bring residents living in that conservation area along with us. The very designation of this area is a statement that its character is worth protecting, and that decisions should be made thoughtfully and with residents. What we have instead is a scheme brought forward with very little consultation, with residents left feeling that the conclusions were foregone. Together with the issues set out by Councillors Trey and Perez, this has resulted in an enormous strength of feeling from the community. In my 13 years as a councillor, no development in the area has come anywhere near the number of residents who have objected. Over 750 residents submitted individual objections or joined the Wormhole Residents Association in objecting. For that reason, I hope the committee rejects this application. If that happens, though, this must not be the end of efforts to improve the school. I hope we can now work together to do this properly, bringing residents into a genuine co-production process to create a revised scheme, not only after the drawings are done. Consider how the full site can be used to avoid concentrating mass along the western boundary, and engage seriously with what it means to build in a conservation area, not as a constraint to be managed, but as an opportunity to create something beautiful that genuinely enhances this community, rather than sitting at odds with it. This can't be achieved through a deferral. It needs a new application. The school needs new facilities. This community needs genuinely affordable homes. These are real and urgent needs, but a once-in-a-generation opportunity deserves a once-in-a-generation effort. That effort has not yet been made, and it should be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who spoke. We now move on to questions from committee members to officers for clarification. Before we pass on to any of my colleagues, I would just want to ask, we've had obviously a request for deferral from the applicant, and in the addendum we see a summary of the exchange you had. If you could just, for everyone's benefit, explain to us the correspondence that has had and why you advise against deferral.
We've had a lot come in from the applicant's agent, following the publication of the committee report. They had reviewed that report and flagged up some concerns on a number of matters. I mean, I think personally that the majority of the issues have been covered in the report and have been dealt with. There was concern raised, obviously, that they hadn't received comments from statutory consultees in time. We have since made sure they have received those comments prior to the committee. And in fact, obviously, the comments were summarised in the committee report. So in their letter of response, they have already responded in some ways to those comments. As such, we as officers did not feel there was any justification to defer the decision. The committee may obviously decide, take their own view on that, but we were satisfied that we felt the hearing could go ahead tonight at the meeting.
Thank you, Neil. To Councillor Schmidt's point about a different scheme wouldn't be the current application, if deferred and slightly amended, wouldn't be able to be recommended for approval. Is this the opinion of the officers, that it would require a new application with substantial changes for that to happen?
Through the chair, Matt Butler, Assistant Director of Development Management. That's difficult to know without knowing what those changes may end up being. Given our concerns with the current scheme and the weight of those concerns, I would certainly anticipate without prejudice in what might come forward, if indeed changes were submitted, that those revisions and indeed any additional information and clarification is likely to be of such a scale that would certainly necessitate another round of consultation, including public consultation, particularly so given the obvious level of interest this application has generated, and particularly the nature of that interest being a large number or percentage of those comments being in objection, and quite a wide range of objections or issues raised as part of those objections. Therefore, there is an argument that this would be more appropriately dealt with as part of a new planning application. But as I said, it's very difficult to give a view on that without knowing what ultimately that might manifest itself as. I would also point out, I mean, it would give the applicant an opportunity to do some more community engagement, which we strongly encourage before any submission that is detailed, meaningful, and clearly demonstrates a response to comments that have been raised as part of that community engagement, which again, you couldn't really do that as part of an existing application. That would need to take place before a new application is submitted.
Thank you very much. From these comments and also from what you've had on the addendum and other conversations, I'm obviously happy to proceed. If there's any colleague who would like to speak in favour of a deferral, we can do so now. Otherwise, we can move on with questions to the committee. Councillor Pascal-Tilbury.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Just looking at the 8 reasons why this is being refused, it strikes me that they can be roughly divided into things where we need more info, and things where it is very clearly not a goer from what officers have said. If it is the case that there are a number of very clear-cut issues why this wouldn't fly, then I'd be interested to know what broke down in the conversations between the applicant and officers, because it's also clear to me from what the applicant said that they were pretty surprised. They thought they'd worked on this in good faith and they had a proposal ready to go. And obviously you don't spend so much time in such a critical place without having something that's ready to build. So could I have an assessment of what's gone wrong here in these conversations? Thank you.
Through the chair, it's never a straightforward process, any pre-application. Now, these are confidential, but I think it's safe to say that we had raised significant concerns during the pre-application stage process, which we felt weren't addressed when the application was submitted. And I would add that again, in terms of the timing of the submission, the pre-application work that had been done, these are all concerns we had raised with the applicant. And again, we felt the application, to be quite blunt, wasn't ready for submission, but for their own reasons, they decided to submit it. But it is difficult. These are confidential. I can't prejudice the process in that respect, but I think it's safe for me to say what I have said.
Thank you very much. To follow up on that, if the feeling is that the proposal wasn't quite ready, then it follows that a bit more time could feasibly get it ready. And I'd welcome your thinking on whether having that bit more time could potentially allow these conversations to take place that would get it in a workable position without a great deal more work.
Through the chair, I can only really refer to my earlier answer to the chair regarding the benefits or otherwise of a deferment against a new application. I could only refer back to those comments. I couldn't really add more, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Further questions from members of the committee? Councillor Kamel.
Thank you, Chair. Before I just get to some questions I have, just in general, I do have a record of being supportive of educational facility improvements for our residents in this borough over the decades. And perhaps the weight I apply to some of the planning balance might be slightly different from some of the officers. And I do remember, and I go back long enough to remember when this was the Hammersmith School and the Wren building was still extant before the pupils burnt it down. I do remember when it was dubbed in the national press as the worst school in Britain. I also remember the appointment of William Atkinson. I remember that bastion of right-wing journalism, The Guardian, referring to it as the most improved school in the country. This is an outstanding school. I have had the privilege of going round, not recently, I have to say, of going round the Phoenix School. And even when I last went round, which was somewhere in the region of sort of 15 years ago, it was in a decrepit condition. So anyway, I had problems because I do attach different weight, and I do have two daughters who are in an ex-local authority academy in the borough, and I do realise how important facilities are for the education of the next generations. Just going back to some of the reasons. Problems with the biodiversity net gain. The applicant, as far as I can see, are claiming that it's a 15% biodiversity net gain, and officers seem to have some difference of opinion, shall I say, with that figure. Could you explain the rationale between the differences, please?
I mean, our colleagues who review the green factor and the biodiversity net gain. I've looked at this. They've assessed the BNG proposals, and it says in the report that, including the potential of mature tree discussed in the report, and whilst the overall site-wise uplift of 10% is achieved, there's a net loss in respective to on-site habitat of moderate value. I mean, a loss of value in respect of bramble scrub and individual urban trees, the loss of habitat would be exacerbated by, say, there's a mention of the report, there's a tree that is missing off the site, and therefore there's the information submitted for the BNG calculation, officers are not convinced that is correct and acceptable, and they feel that there would be an issue. So, sorry. Yeah, in the event, I think that everything else was acceptable on the scheme, conditions for submission and approval of landscaping to include adequate tree planting to offset the loss, could be considered in the event that there was a recommendation for approval. Unfortunately, with the other regions that we have, it's not something that we would have taken forward at this particular time.
Thank you for that answer, but you did say that the BNG has been achieved, and the significant tree that is omitted potentially from the report. That's not a category A tree, is it?
It's not a category A tree,
no. Moving on to
just being efficient by turning it off when I've finished speaking. The objection on the grounds of the housing, I find a little difficult, given that the area of need most identified by the housing department that I've been told about is a lack of larger homes for which the demand for which far exceeds for 3 and 4 bedroom properties, far exceeds the demand for 1 and 2 beds. And I'm sure all members here have had constituents coming to them complaining that their statutorily overcrowded. And we know, however needy the case is, that we cannot magic homes out of nothing. And we have housing targets that we have to meet. Do officers accept that whilst it might not follow the strict letter of the policy because it overprovides what we most need, that it would be a welcome benefit to the housing targets in the borough and in particular the areas of most need?
I mean, we do obviously naturally welcome the housing in the borough. We appreciate the position, and particularly family units. We're aware from discussion with our housing colleagues that there is demand for that. I mean, they feel that there is demand both in terms of intermediate ownership as well, in terms of trying to help people get put up, so not just social rent. So I think the position taken, yes, is not strictly policy compliant if you go by the strict word of the policy, and there may be flexibility, but that, perhaps, as I say, if it was compliant in all other matters and there's these cumulative impacts that are sort of set out in the reasons for refusal, why that has been put forward as a ground.
Chair, I mean, it's an important consideration that we do consider all these policy matters in the round and in the balance, and it's an important point that yes, we do have an acute housing need for social housing and family housing in the borough, but we also equally have a very high demand for intermediate housing, and part of our responsibility in assessing against the development plan is also to achieve sustainable mixed communities, and we are therefore very mindful of the need to provide a mix of affordable where we feel it can be achieved, and we're not convinced on this that it can't be achieved. We're also, and it's very important, you know, we don't, and certainly it's important as a guiding principle of all planning applications and legislation, is we do assess each application on its own individual merits, and it's not a simple case of because we've accepted this somewhere else, then we would accept it here. The type and concentration of affordable housing in the area would also be a consideration for us. As I said, the change in demands of clients on our waiting list would be important, as well as the increasing and changing pressures of achieving other important policy objectives in our development plan, which does include also the delivery of upstream and our industrial strategy, and providing the right homes for people to access within the borough to those ends. So there's a wide range of considerations, but we certainly acknowledge the important contribution of social housing in this scheme would provide. But as I said, it is considered against all the other policy objectives.
If I may just come in, Alex, just on the point on social housing, because I noticed on what is it, page 36 in the report, paragraph 739 and 740. If I understand correctly, essentially it's saying that the provision of social housing is essentially separate to the market units in a way that is in conflict with the local plan, and in a way which essentially means that there's two separate not inclusive parts of the development. And if I understand correctly, this reminds me of some schemes that we've seen over the years in the national press, where there's one sort of facilities for those on market rates and different one for those on social rents. Is this correct? And is this would be, for me, an important issue with the development that hasn't really been clear if you just look at the headline reasons for refusal.
Yes, I guess, as I said in the presentation, the affordable housing is all in the northern block. If I can just, it would be in this block here in the northwest corner of the sites. That all the affordable units together.
I understand that in itself, the way they're located is, as you say, that goes against the local plan policies.
Yeah, I mean, ideally we prefer to have a mixed community, you know, mix the affordable housing up throughout a development scheme. It doesn't always happen, but that's certainly what we strive for.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, through the chair, I think you're right that we always look and seek to ensure that the housing provider in the borough is tenure blind, essentially. And you could look at a development, you wouldn't know which was the market against which was the affordable. And indeed, we seek to pepper pot as much as we can. So we're providing those sustainable and mixed communities as far as possible. There are obvious challenges to that, which we acknowledge, in terms of housing associations can take on in terms of units that are spread across the scheme, and then you have also issues around service charges and so forth. So we do acknowledge as well the practical and commercial challenges in respect of ensuring affordable housing is spread as far as possible. And I think that there are clever ways and creative ways of doing it, and arguably this scheme could approach it better.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification, Councillor Carmel.
Yes, I'm grateful to Mr. Butler for the highlighting the problems that we both know that we've had problems with pepper potted schemes in the past, and they've come back to reduce the amount of affordable housing because they couldn't find a registered provider to take it on because of the pepper potting nature. And there is that. And if you couple that with the fact that the larger units, which occupy different floor plates and so forth, make it increasingly difficult to pepper pot. It's difficult to have 1 and 2 bed flats interspersed in the same building with 4 beds. That's by the way. But if I could just move on to the concerns over heritage matters. When I consider that just a couple of meetings ago, we considered, and I know each application is objectively viewed on its individual merits, but for instance, the Earls Court Development Corporation scheme had grade 1 listed buildings that were closer to the site at a significantly greater density and height than to this. And that was not raised, despite me raising it at committee, that was not considered to be to carry sufficient weight to mitigate against the scheme. And as officers will remember, I did actually, in fact, vote in favour of that application. So I'm just slightly concerned that I know each application is dealt on its merits, but I think applicants also have to have the right to an even playing field. And it doesn't seem that, and I know different areas of the borough have different rules, but it doesn't seem quite, what I'm looking for, and it's not a planning word, it doesn't seem quite just, given the scale of just taking, for example, the effect on heritage assets for the Earls Court Development Scheme and the effect on the heritage assets in this area. And given the separation as well, and I think I'm right in thinking that the minimum window-to-window separation distance is about 20 meters, and that's just to the brand new Calix building. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Could you answer, Alan, perhaps as to the points on design?
Yes.
And let's have a design section now. I think part of the challenge with the application is that there's all sorts of different. There's not one single issue, which is why officer on the So let's just take them thematically.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I'm Alan Jones, Urban Design and Heritage Team Leader. So, Councillor, you are completely right in terms of the fact that the Earls Court application did come to us for consideration. We went through the same process with this application as we did with that, in terms of both applications were supported by heritage townscape visual impact assessments that went through a number of understanding of how the heritage assets were considered, what harm there would be to set in. Now, I think that there are 2 key elements of this that are quite important. The first is the fact that this application site is in a conservation area in its own right. The conservation area is quite heavily discussed in terms of its nature, in terms of being predominantly 2-storey residential dwellings rather than in the nature of Earls Court, the mix of different typologies of buildings, particularly the fact there are tall buildings in Earls Court as well, the Empress Place building as well. So we have taken that on board, and we've also considered, I think as well, the actual extent of visibility of the proposals. You know, these are more considered in terms of the heights in comparison to Earls Court, but I think it is a completely different setting to what we're considering in this application. So I think we've taken all of that on board in terms of where we get to. The other part of this as well is also the kind of the benefits that come from that, both in terms of the heritage benefits overall, and again, there were some benefits that came out of the Earls Court scheme, particularly around the kind of public realm design as a whole that were taken on board, you know, the new public spaces that were delivered. This scheme hasn't got any formalised public spaces that are delivered for the enjoyment of the community at all times, and also the design quality of the scheme. We do have concerns, as Matt mentioned before, around the fact that the detail of the scheme, particularly the upper floors that are most visible, we haven't resolved those in a satisfactory manner to ensure that design quality can outweigh some of that heritage harm to the maximum extent possible, really. So there's a lot within that we need to unpack, but I think that's where we get to in terms of the difference of approach of the 2 sites, both based on context, visibility of the scheme, and then also those other elements of balance that we need to take on board.
Thank you. I'm grateful for that answer. And the Earls Court scheme was just an exemplar as opposed to that. And you know, we could spend all evening going through different sites in conservation areas where perhaps not this because of other factors. And I imagine I do appreciate the cumulative effect that officers have taken on various factors and the weight that is applied to it, and I do understand that. But I would just sort of say that when you say there's no public benefit, there is the use of the community facilities that is being offered by that. That is not, I don't believe, a requirement under a planning condition. This is something that the Academy does. They also allow at discounted rates the hire of various buildings. Again, not as far as I'm aware, but I could be wrong on this one, not as a requirement, but this is them proactively being part of their community. And I do accept what the objectors say, that the majority of pupils don't come from the local area. So I'm responding to what they gave.
Sorry, what I was talking about is the heritage benefits rather than the public benefits. So in terms of the design heritage benefits, there aren't any formalised new public spaces such as what Earls Court does. So that's just to clarify, that's what we're getting to. Again, that balance comes into the wider conclusion of the report in terms of wider public benefits.
Thank you. Just going quickly on to the loss of sports facilities and open space. As I said,
sorry to interrupt, Councillor Kamel. Are there any further questions, the design and heritage aspects of the scheme? No. Okay. On to sports.
Given that the application, as I understand it, will result in a drop in what I think is called the standard number of pupils, and therefore the demand for sport and leisure activities will be reduced. I would also like to see how we balance this with two recent applications for new schools in the borough, West London Free School and the boys' school in Fulham, which is virtually close to zero facilities, and yet these were deemed acceptable. And indeed, my daughter's school, which has a bigger role than the one proposed for Phoenix Academy, only has, I think, 3 netball courts, or the size of 3 netball courts, and yet the school has been allowed to expand without. I wondered, has the regulation changed in the last 5 years that has changed the perspective, so that those schools, had they come forward now, wouldn't be acceptable, whereas they were then?
I'm not aware that the rules have changed. I don't know the specifics of those 2 cases that you mentioned. I mean, what we're looking at here is the facilities that are currently available on the site and what will be available following the development. The current role is at a certain level, which will be increased as part of this development, and albeit down from its, I believe, its original highest point back a number of years ago. It has dropped down to about half of what that was, and it would, or more than that, and would be rising as part of this. I believe it's around about 500 on at the moment they've got at the school, and that'll probably rise to about 900, I believe.
But the school capacity is currently, I think, somewhere over 1,300. So going down to 500 is significantly more than about half. But I mean, that is by the by. I do understand the the concerns of local residents. And I do note that they did add on the extra consultation event in September, which they delivered, I think, according to their background papers, which they submitted, sent it to the invitation to 4,725 addresses. And the extra one that they put on, which doesn't even say if it was new people who turned up, but they had a grand attendance of 32 people. But that is by the way. Chair, I will actually formally put onto the floor, if I can get a seconder, that given that there are things which my colleague has mentioned, which I think can be addressed and can assuage some of the concerns of local residents and indeed that of officers, I will propose that this item be deferred from this meeting to allow further discussions between both the applicant and the officers, and indeed potentially with between the applicant and the local residents association. And in particular, Mr. Is his name right? Mr. Vallis, I think. So that they can see if they can come to some sort of compromise. So can I formally move that this item be deferred?
Is there a seconder?
I second.
Could you just state it, sorry, on that?
Formally seconded.
Thank you very much. In that case, I believe we will take a vote. Yes, after an hour and a half, deferral is interesting. Could we have a vote on whether to have a deferral of the item? Councillor Melton, will you be voting for a deferral or against or not voting?
Against the deferral.
Councillor Painter?
Against deferral.
Councillor Pascal-Tilbury?
For referral.
Councillor Carmel?
I support my motion.
And I will also be voting against the deferral. Thank you very much. Are there any further questions, therefore, on the item? I just wanted to have one item. I wanted to ask from the beginning, actually. The point was made about the petition, as it is termed, being an objection, actually, a series of individual objections. Do you have anything to add to this point?
No, the petition is clearly set out in the report that it is an objection to the development and is signed by 718 persons. So, after each other.
I think we'll now move on to the vote, as there seem to be no further questions. First, on whether recommendation 1 in the report is agreed. Councillor Melton, are you voting for, against, or not voting? To vote for is to vote for refusing the item. For. Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pascal-Tilbury?
Against.
Councillor Kamel?
Against.
I will also be voting for, and therefore the item, subject to the changes made in the addendum, is refused. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming. We move on to item number 5, which will be the former Derry Crest site. John Sanchez will be the presiding officer. We'll just allow 2 minutes for the changeover of officers.
I've got to get it on there first. If I'm honest, man, I've got to yeah. PDF. Yeah. There's no PDFs. Be careful.
Councillor Trehi. Sorry, everyone, we're about to start with the next item, so you're very welcome to stay. Sorry, Councillor Trehi. Thank you very much.
Fine. It might be because he said, you might prefer that. What was the next presentation before school?
Thank you, Chair. I will run through the, first of all, my name's John Sanchez. I'm one of the deputy team leaders in the strategic applications team for the council. I will be running through the presentation for this section 73. It's a minor amendment to planning application. These are amendments that have been made to the original outline planning permission that was granted on the 28th of April 2021. Before I start, I would like to draw members' attention to the addendum. So as pointed out, this is a section 73 application for minor material amendments. This will result in a new independent planning permission being issued if the recommendation is agreed. This will sit alongside the original outline planning permission and will be considered when determining future reserve matter applications that are submitted in relation to particular development zones or building plots on the site. Members should also be aware, although it's not for consideration tonight, there are currently 3 reserve matter applications pending determination with the council, which were submitted post-submission of the current Section 73 application. The reserve matter applications seek approval for reserve matters. One of them includes a building plot, which is called Development Zone 3 South, and this is for the erection of a purpose-built academic building on the site, together with updated public realm and landscaping works at Arrival Square, and also for works associated with the amendments to the Western Access Route. Right, this next slide shows the application site outlined in red. Outline planning permission was given for a employment-led mixed-use master plan. The outline planning permission also included a residential element of up to 373 residential units. The development is planned to come forward in a form of 4 phases and 7 zones over an estimated period of 21 years. The application site itself is just over 5.6 hectares in size, and it's located within the White City Opportunity Area and in one of the borough's regeneration areas. This next image is an aerial image of the South Campus. and to the north and sort to the left, you've got beyond the Westway, you've got the North Campus. The site itself is now substantially cleared. You've got scale space buildings there to the north of the image, which were granted planning permission on a temporary period of 10 years. This next image, this next slide points out that the submission for the Section 73 application specifically seeks to vary the conditions listed on the screen. Members should also be aware that during the course of the planning application and in the recommendation to committee, there are a number of other conditions that have either been amended or replaced or deleted from the original outline permission, giving consideration to updated policies and standards. This next slide shows the proposed changes that have been made to the Section 73 application. As pointed out, the key driver for this is the proposal to include an academic floor space within the master plan of up to 42,000 square meters. This results in changes to key control documents like the parameter plans and the development specification, and the bullet points listed summarize some of the key points and changes. Another key driver is the removal of a basement ramp and tunnel that was granted in the original outline planning permission. This now will result in an grade delivery and servicing arrangement. The other key factor is a substantial reduction in car parking spaces on the site. This will now be effectively a car light development with only 23 blue badge spaces proposed. The other key factor is the energy strategy. When this permission was granted, it was proposed for gas CHP system. What's now being proposed is a more decentralized air source heat pump system. This will be heated on a plot by plot basis, although there are aspirations for this all to be connected to a wider heat network. This next slide just shows the proposed changes to the parameter plans. So you can see identified there development zone 3, where the key changes to the being proposed under the Section 73 are proposed. This next slide just shows the layout of the development zones in context with the extent of proposed public realm within the scheme. There's a substantial area of hard and soft landscaping through the central square and connections to the bridge via Arrival Square. This next slide summarizes the proposed floor space. Now, the key issue here is that there's no uplift in the maximum floor space of the development compared to the original outline planning permission. What has been introduced, though, is the academic floor space, which is the 42,200 square meters. Now, this allows effectively the applicant to have some flexibility in terms of what uses come forward within that overall cap. The next slide just shows the changes between the consented and proposed zones, and on the right hand side you can see development zone 3 is now split between the academic element, which is in green, with the research and development floor space in blue. The next two slides effectively show the proposed changes to the access and servicing strategies. Effectively, the servicing arrangements will be operating in a loop system via the bridge access, either in a clockwise or anti-clockwise system. And obviously the key element here is ensuring that pedestrian access is retained, because obviously one of the key drivers of this master plan within our local plan is obviously the retaining connectivity through the site to other sites, either to the north or south of the campus. And then lastly, I just wish to bring members' attention to the proposed academic use. Although this isn't formally being considered tonight, I just thought show you some slides. So this is the location of the academic building, which is on the left-hand side. The next two images show the location of DZ3 South in context with DZ North. Development zones 3 and 6, and development zone 6 is where the scale space building currently is. They're the two largest development zones within the master plan. And as you can see, the academic building will be a key building in this master plan, given its location by the new bridge. And then lastly, just some images of this is the illustrative massing of the academic building. And these are two CGI images of the proposed building that are being considered under the reserve matters application. The recommendation to committee is that the executive director of place to the committee is that planning permission be granted subject to conditions and the completion of a satisfactory deed of variation to the section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. We also have a speaker, Fergal Berg, to speak on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Berg, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, members. I'm Fergal Burke, Director of Master Planning at Imperial, speaking in support of our application for minor amendments to the approved White City Campus South Master Plan. Imperial's 23-acre White City campus brings together world-leading academics, clinicians and businesses to turn cutting-edge research into real-world impact. Today, over 5,000 people work on the campus across areas including AI, medtech, engineering and climate science, alongside more than 100 science and technology companies. Our long-standing partnership with Hammersmith and Fulham Council has helped establish White City as one of Europe's leading innovation districts. Since 2017, this collaboration has supported significant inward investment, around 800 STEM-based firms and approximately 13,000 jobs, driven by a flexible, agile innovation model. Alongside this economic growth, the campus is delivering new homes, green spaces, community facilities, and publicly accessible places to eat and meet for the local community and area. The targeted changes proposed today will support the next phase of sustainable delivery and unlock further investment in innovation. As set out by the planning officer, these include amendments to the energy strategy to enable an all-electric, low-carbon network, supporting Imperial's net zero 2040 commitment and the Council's climate goal ambitions. Improvements to the servicing strategy will enhance campus operations whilst reducing vehicle movements as we progress towards a car-free campus. Approval this evening will also unlock plans for a major new academic building, bringing together computer scientists, mathematicians and business experts in a single facility, which will be Imperial's largest ever investment in its history. This will create a globally significant hub for data science, AI and machine learning, and deliver an outstanding student experience. The new building responds directly to the growing role for data and digital technologies in our economy, healthcare, and environment, helping to attract further pioneering businesses to White City and the wider innovation district. Taken together, these amendments represent a positive and necessary evolution of the approved master plan. They align strongly with local and London-wide planning policy, enhance deliverability, and reinforce White City's role at the heart of innovation and learning. We therefore ask members to support the application this evening so we continue to deliver a campus that benefits Imperial, the borough, and the wider community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burke. As we move to questions from members of the committee, just also, you may have done it, John, apologies if I missed it. We also have the addendum, which has some extra information. So any questions from members of the committee? Councilor Kamel, quick questions?
Yes, thank you. Do we have any reasons given by the applicant as why the CHP system is being replaced with a more expensive system?
Well, obviously the aspiration of the applicant is to create a fossil-free system, which is obviously in line with the London plan.
Can I interject, Councillor Carmel, that I disagree with the assertion that a CHP system is cheaper than a heat pump. It's widely reported and widely known that the running costs of a heat pump or networked heat pump system are significantly lower and would return on the investment within a few years.
I'm grateful for that, because and I know that you have specific expertise in that, so I will replace what I have been told before with what you have said. Thank you. If I've understood this correctly, there's a 10% increase in height on this buildings, and the addendum, sorry, no, I'll get on to that, that's the next bit. It also refers to changes to the setback. Do we have a comparison picture so we can judge what the difference in height is and how the setback is done? Will the setback cover the entirety of the increase in height? And can we compare what was approved in the original outline application compared to what is being proposed to us tonight?
Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the parameter plan which shows that. If I just explain, under the original outline planning permission, the parameter plan, it was a series of steps, whereas this is now a more consistent line, which we think is an improvement to the scheme. It also allows for outdoor use in terms of terraces to be incorporated within the scheme. What I can show you is the CGI images of the.
Just before you do that, John, just to re-emphasize what John said earlier, which may have noticed.
This is not an application for the approval of the building. This is to change the parameters. It's more like changing the jelly mold, if you like, of what could be designed within them. So the height is necessary because the building will be higher, but it doesn't actually design the building. It just allows for it. So what you're seeing now is actually the reserve matter that's come in. This hasn't been to committee yet, and it can't go to committee until the 73 has been approved.
I'm with you now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, just a quick one again not again, but on the addendum. I noticed on the addendum to on page 209 of the application, on paragraph 12.73, it appears to me, and I could be wrong, that due to copy and pasting, you included some of the information that was used for the Earls Court development site, because it talks about the former exhibition centre building, and you've just taken out 2 sentences, but does the rest for instance, the molar of June 24 and the recent geoarchaeological, try saying that when you've had a few, monitoring of the geotechnical works and watching briefs to the east of the site relate to this site, or is that it just seems, if you're having specifics about specific dates, to accidentally copy and paste it, and it happens. I just want to make sure that this is now going to be the right information before us.
Yes, and apologies to the committee being caught. Yes, notwithstanding that, yes, the rest of the paragraph is correct. There have been archaeological works done on the site already, and we've dealt with some discharge of condition applications. So yeah, it's just those 2 sentences that were incorrect.
Thank you. I have absolutely no objections to the scheme, but can you just confirm that if as and when you consider any future application for the increase in height, that you make sure that the impact on the DIMCO buildings is fully taken into account, because they're lovely buildings and I do like them.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? In that case, we'll move on to voting. First, on whether recommendation 1 in the report is agreed. Councillor Trey, are you voting for, against, or not voting?
For.
Councillor Melton?
For.
Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pascal Tilbury?
For.
Councillor Kamel?
For.
And I will also be voting for. And on whether recommendation 2 in the report is agreed, Councillor Trey?
For.
Councillor Melton?
For.
Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pascal Tilbury? Councillor Kamel?
For.
And I will also be voting for, and therefore the item is approved. Thank you very much, and thank you to our speaker. We move on to item number 6, which is, we can have 2 minutes. Yeah.
No boys, back. And the rest will look
That's the other ones that are a bit more interesting. It's usually the small ones. That's
So we're doing the Grange. Yeah, it's because it's shading the windows, not. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Probably should. Yeah.
another year at least, isn't it? Just delayed during COVID at one point.
So so my sister over the weekend. She was doing it. I'm sure you want to say more. That's funds. That's the funds.
Oh yeah.
So I was typing it through Copilot with their laptops. I haven't got Copilot. So she messaged me up and I said, can you just give me this all day? She messaged me at 11 and was like, yeah, I'll do it later on. She did it at midnight. But you'd have to do it a couple of times here. Right? But I was like, what the hell, you know? So I've done 6 of them now the last 4 days. After you say the head teacher, just do what? Copilot. So how should you come to it? Using ChatGPT to report everything else.
Thank you very much. We therefore move to
Item number 6, which is the land to the rear of the Grange on Gohope Road, and Neil Eggerton will be presenting the report.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I say this relates to the site land to the rear of the Grange, Goldhawk Road, and the proposal is for the redevelopment of the rear of the site, demolishing existing vacant garages and erection of a 4-storey building comprising 8 dwellings with associated PV panels at roof level, enclosures, amenity spaces, public realm and landscaping. It's a council-owned scheme proposal. Site is shown here. The Grange itself is in that blue sort of section to the front of the site, and you see the row of garages to the rear there on the north of the site, backing onto Elgin Avenue. There's a couple of aerial photographs to do from the south, and you see the garages, bit of vacant green space, and some informal parking going on in that area. That's the view from the south, from the north, looking down towards the existing Grange building here. It's a student accommodation block on the right here where my cursor is. So some site photographs. It's the entrance into the site from Goldhawk Road. You just make out garages to the rear. And there we are. You've got this informal green space in the middle, and there are some pram stores on the left there, and so these garages to the rear. So the garages are vacant at the moment; they're not used. And that's just looking down towards Goldhawk Road, to the vehicular access from Goldhawk Road. As you see, there is informal parking going on the double yellow lines around the site there. And then that's the view from Elgin Avenue. Currently, so that's the garages that back onto the avenue. So this is the proposed site plan. See the building being created here on the northern part of the site. There was additional landscaping and communal space provided here. It would be a car-free development by way of a legal document with the occupied not eligible for parking permit. See ground floor proposal of four ground floor, 4 maisonettes. They're all dual aspect. See the pram stalls are located here on the left still. There's three pram stalls would be lost in the development. They've been re-provided on the other side. And you see that the maisonettes have got the private amenity space to the front and rear of the site. Plant room there with lift and stairs up. These are both first and second floor plans. Again, The there are a number of small balconies for the residential units, providing amenity space both to the front and the rear. And then top floor shows here, and you've got the roof plan shows green roof, PV panels, and indicative location of air source heat pumps with an acoustic enclosure. The north elevation of the new units facing onto Elgin Avenue, and then the southern elevation facing onto the Grange. And then just a quick section through. CGI is the view from the existing Grange. Here you see the landscaping and communal amenity space, which will be available for the future residents as well as the existing residents of the Grange. And that's the view from Elgin Avenue. So the units would have access onto here. There will be 100% affordable homes being provided. It's only 8 units, so it doesn't trigger the policy requirement. However, so it's council-owned development, and all 8 units will be affordable. 75% of them would be shared ownership, with 25% being for rent. The development would also be a contribution towards delivery upstream London, some Section 278 works, and air quality construction logistic monitoring fees. There were a number of objections, 6 objections to the proposal, to do with overlooking noise and privacy, impact on the existing nursery next door at 214 Goldhawk Road, and particularly the access for bins, etc. These matters have been resolved. The overlooking, there's no problems from the new units to existing windows. Rear garden to the nursery would be overlooked, but it is overlooked currently, so there's no real change. So officers are recommending that planning permission be granted, subject to legal documents and subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. There's an addendum as well.
Yes, there's a couple of items in the addendum. Apologies. One paragraph refers to existing rather than proposed, and the next paragraph refers to rather than existing. So that has been changed, and then the recommendation within the report to change the title for the executive director in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members of the committee on this particular item? Councilor Kamel.
Thank you. Looking at condition 35, just for my curiosity, could you tell me what the difference is between a metric spreadsheet and a BMG plan?
BMG metric spreadsheet, BMG plan.
I can't explain the difference between that and the condition required by a colleague, and so I can't explain that difference between the metric spreadsheet and the game plan. Sorry.
I know it's just that if they've submitted the report by whatever it is, Arbitera and this and that and the other, I just wondered that they can't commence until they've submitted a plan, what the difference is, because at the last, the previous application, they had submitted a plan and it wasn't given as one of the grounds for, or that weighed in the balance against them. And I just wondered what the difference was, but don't worry if we don't know, whatever. And I also, just while we're on the thing, I'll just make a comment on the fact that one of the things that weighed into the officer deciding to come down against Phoenix Academy was that the mix wasn't right, and yet this is 100% non-mixed, and quite how the two marry up, apart from the fact that it's a regulation for development. That's by the by, but I personally have no great problems with this.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Okay, in that case, we can move straight to voting. First, on whether recommendation 1 on page 226 of the report is agreed. Councillor Trey, have you voted for, against, or not voting?
For.
Councillor Melton?
For.
Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pastor?
For.
Councillor Kamau?
For.
I will also be voting for. And then we'll move on to whether recommendation 2 of the report is agreed. Councillor Trey?
For.
Councillor Melton?
For.
Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pastor? Councillor Kamau?
For.
And I will also be voting for, and therefore the item is approved. Thank you very much. We can move straight to item number 7, which is the land between Becklow Gardens and Askew Crescent. And Sean Brown will present the report in a minute or so.
Thank you, Chair. Sean Brown, Principal Planning Officer in Development Management. Can I just firstly draw your attention to the addendum, which includes some minor corrections to some of the wording and figures specified in the report, as well as the change to the type of those authorised to make changes to the conditions and heads of terms. This application relates to land between Becklow Gardens and Askew Crescent. This is a council application for the redevelopment of existing and former garages and communal playground within the Becklow Gardens estate, comprising the erection of a Part 3, Part 5-storey building, providing 20 flats, of which 100% will be affordable housing, consisting of 30% social rent, 70% shared ownership. Provision of cycle parking and 1 blue badge parking space, and the provision of the communal play area, as well as public realm improvements. This slide shows the subject site highlighted in blue. The site is bounded by Askew Crescent to the northwest and by residential blocks within Becklow Gardens estate to the north, east and south. Vehicular access to the estate is provided from Askew Crescent to the north, as well as from Becklow Road to the south. The site is not within a conservation area. This is an aerial view of the site. The site includes an area of hard standing. The image here shows the site as it previously was, which contained 14 garages at the bottom of the site, which has since been demolished. There are also 4 garages. I don't know if you can see, it's a bit slow, here hidden behind the trees. And in the centre of the site is a communal playground for use of residents of the estate and within the local area. The surrounding area is predominantly residential. You can see just to the top of the site are 5-storey residential blocks of Becklow Gardens, and to the bottom of the site and adjacent to the site are 2-storey terrace housing on Askew Crescent. This is a view of the existing playground. As you can see, it's not very inviting and not of great quality. This site shows the proposed site layout. The new residential block is here, together with the provision of 1 blue badge parking space here to the right. And this area below will be a combination of improved public realm and a new playground to replace the existing. The residential units will be spread across 5 floors and will consist of 7 1-beds, 11 2-beds and 2 3-beds. This is the proposed ground floor. 10% of the units will be and wheelchair accessible. And these are the 2 units here, front, highlighted in pink. So we've got a 2-bed and a 1-bed. Long-stay cycle parking is provided internally here, as well as within the rear gardens of the 2 flats at ground floor level here. There is also short-stay parking here to the rear of the site, and refuse storage is provided internally to the Askew Crescent frontage, and that's where it will be collected. This is a proposed typical first and second floor plan. As you can see, all units would benefit from private amenity space in the form of a balcony. This is a proposed third and fourth floor plan. Again, all units would benefit from private amenity space. And this is the proposed roof plan, and this shows the location of the plant and acoustic enclosure. It also shows the indicative layout of the solar panels and green roofs. This slide shows the proposed front elevation here on the top facing Askew Crescent, and below is the rear elevation facing Becklow Gardens estate. And these are side elevations of the new building. These show the proposed building a little bit better in terms of its context. So the top, as you can see in both plans actually, the images illustrate how the building has been designed to provide a sensitive transition between the 2-storey residential properties on Askew Crescent and the 5-storey apartment block at 127 to 196 Becklow Gardens. This is an illustrative view from Askew Crescent. The architectural treatment is a contemporary interpretation of the 1930s architectural style of the original Becklow Gardens buildings, being based in red brickwork with decorative horizontal bands and contrasting patterns of white and red brickwork. Again, this is an illustrative view of the new building from within Becklow Gardens and part of the updated public realm. In addition to the provision of 100% affordable housing, as part of the legal agreement, officers have also secured local employment and training initiatives, a carbon offset payment, monitoring fees for various documents, as well as the dwellings being car permit free. Overall, the proposal would increase the borough's affordable housing supply while delivering a high standard of residential accommodation. It would provide public ground and play space to an improved quality, benefiting both future occupants and existing local residents. Development would enhance the street scene, and impacts on neighbouring amenities are considered acceptable. Subject to conditions in Section 106 obligations, there would be no significant impact on the highway network or local parking. Biodiversity and ecological enhancements would be achieved through landscaping, which either meet or exceed targets for urban greening factor and biodiversity net gains. The scheme also delivers an 85% on-site reduction in carbon emissions through energy efficiency design and renewable technologies, including air source heat pumps and PV panels. On this basis, officers recommend planning permission is granted subject to conditions and the legal agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. I'm really pleased with this application. I think especially this, it looks very good, and I definitely agree with your assessment that it adds to the streetscape in terms of design. Any questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Trey.
Yes, sorry. I'm going to ask you to clarify the financial contribution and a payment in lieu. That's the council paying it to the council. I'm a bit confused of how that works in reality. Is that a silly question?
It's silo mentality from God's own budget. Sorry, Sam.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure if I can answer that question. I'm not sure whether it would be the developer who pays it, who would be implementing the scheme. I can just double check.
Depends on the delivery. Oh, sorry, through the chair. It depends on the delivery vehicle that's used. In this instance, there is a council-owned delivery, then we'd have to enter into a memorandum of understanding similar to what was agreed with the Avonmore school scheme. If there's an external body involved, then there could be a legal agreement, usually in the form of a unilateral undertaking with a confirmatory deed that once they take interest in the site, then they're liable for the payment. So it really depends on logistically what happens in terms of delivery post planning. But what we're saying to committee is that will be secured in one way or another.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And possibly going back to Councillor Carmel's comment from the last application about there being a mixed tenure. Yes, affordable housing, 100% affordable homes, but social rent versus shared ownership widens the tenure quite significantly, I think. And so I would consider that mixed.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Councillor Pascal Tilbury.
Thanks very much. More of a comment than a question, but this is one hell of a good looking building. And I think all of us who take pleasure in seeing good things on our streets should welcome it.
I agree with that. Councillor Carmel.
I will echo that. I think it's the nicest building we've seen this year. And not that I'm going to put you on the spot, but if you happen to know who the architect is, I just want to know it so I can put a little tick box in my in my little mental list for to do that. But I do really like this design. But couple of things. Again, going back firstly to a subject I've gone on before, the size of the units, and I went on about, especially with social housing, the need for larger properties. I don't think that this meets the aspiration for the split for larger properties, which are the properties which I understand are in the greatest need. And I've got a separate question on a separate subject. I'll leave that.
I think what I would say is that all of the units do exceed the minimum standards. They all benefit from external amenity space, private external amenity space. And I think given the site constraints in terms of bees, glassing, fitting into the existing context, and also be mindful of the neighbouring properties, I think this is a good scheme that optimises the site's potential and provides units which we would consider to be of a good quality accommodation.
Absolutely lovely answer, bore absolutely no relation to the point I was making, but congratulations anyway. I was asking about the size of the units, as in 2, 3, 4 bedroom units. But I've made the point on that. But to move on, the photographs you showed of the existing site showed some quite nice mature trees. I know that the report in whatever it is, 512.3 says that there's going to be a net gain of 3. The maple tree that is being lost, what category is it, and is that the only tree that is going to be lost?
Thank you. It's definitely not category A tree. It's a young maple tree. I can just show you the location of it. So
I switched. You flipped the site plan with the photograph. So
sorry.
The other way around.
Yeah.
One. I'm trying to. I didn't want to do an Australian sound in my head.
The maple tree is sort of in this location here, and so the arboricultural officer was happy for that to be removed. They didn't deem it of sufficient size or quality to retain. However, the scheme does retain all of the trees, and it does introduce 3 trees, so there would be a net increase of 2 on the site.
And if you go back to the photograph that was your opening site photograph, which is the other way around, well within the red line where you said there were three additional, I think it's 3 additional garages in there. Those 4. Those 2 trees are going to remain, and there is sufficient protection for them during any building works.
The application is submitted by an arboricultural impact assessment, and that includes protection measures both during construction and after construction. And we have a condition which asks for the scheme to be implemented in accordance with those measures. So we're happy that they would be retained.
And you talked about reproviding to move on to another subject, if I may, Chair, reproviding play space. It looks like quite generous play space in that. What is it of comparable size, the reprovision play space to what is there?
Yeah, so
yes, simple yes, please.
Oh, well, yes, I can give you figures, but otherwise, yeah.
Councillor Kamal appreciates brevity, so yeah, a simple yes will do. Yeah. Any further questions? No, in that case, we can move on to voting. First, on whether recommendation 1 in the report, page 276 is agreed. Councillor Trehi, are you voting for, against, or not voting? For. Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter? For. Councillor Pascal-Silbury? For. Councillor Kamal? For. I will also be voting for. And now on whether recommendation 2 on the same page of the report is agreed. Councillor Trehi? For. Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter? For. Councillor Pascal-Silbury? For. Councillor Kamal? For. And I will also be voting for, and therefore the item is approved. Thank you very much, and thank you, Sean. We move on to item 8 and 9, essentially, which are both for Sacred Heart High School. We'll be taking 2 separate votes on them, but there will be the one presentation from Neil Egerton.
Okay, next one. Pretty quick.
Thank you, Chair. So the applications relate to Sacred Heart High School. It's a full and illicit building consent, and it relates to the conversion of the Stewart building to an existing gymnasium dating from the 30s into a school theatre and performing arts centre, with the extension to the east elevation in front of the building with mezzanine level, outwards to the existing courtyard to provide foyer facilities, erection of an infill extension to the west elevation, a very small extension, and other internal and external alterations. The site is here. See, the Stewart building is where my cursor is, and the red, strong red hatch is where the extension is proposed, and the lighter area is creation of a hard standing outside. So the aerial photograph of the school, this is the gym here. There's a number of mature trees on the side. The design was being revised since original submission to ensure that it did not have a detrimental impact on the mature tree here, so that would be retained. View again, area view. You can see the existing gym facilities are all up here to the north part of the site. Some site births, the existing gym from the courtyard. So it's three-story building. This is the existing gym, which is saying no longer used for that purpose, although used for some, just classes here and there uses. But it is a building of its time and no longer meets the current needs. You see the drawing here, show this is the gym converted into the stage here, seating around, backstage area behind, and then a foyer and reception area here with the terrace outside, which is designed permeable paving, and ramps access to allow easy access into the site. So it's slightly larger plan there. You see the seating for the stage. Stage there is mainly here, and there's existing departmental offices which remain. Dressing rooms created on, so a small extension to the rear would allow backstage area. Again, this shows the terrace outside. So ramps from the north end and from the south end to allow access. And yep, it's the mezzanine plan. So see the stage below. Control room will be up there, and gallery, so a few gallery seats. And then at roof level, new foyer roof, glazing, etc. There, and then the new roof at the rear element. The existing, this is just showing the basement level, which is a clean room there. There's a music room existing, electrical store, and wardrobe store, and there are toilet facilities, staircases, but no real change basement level. And then access to the side would be excuse me, from the east of the side, and you see the route here takes you along and allows access, easy access up for both visitors and students. This is the eastern elevation of the building. You see the gym behind, and you have the foyer and the mezzanine level. Here it's a lightweight timber structure, glazed, and to the rear there's a small extension here, which will not have much of an impact. And there's this side elevation, again showing the foyer and the mezzanine, and again from the other side. It's a very lightweight structure, which won't harm the character and appearance of the listed building. And there, the section through the building, so you can see the foyer area and the slight upper areas between the stores. And then just CGI showing it. You can see the mature tree retained, and there's conditions to ensure that the roots are protected when the development's going on, if consent is granted. Whilst there'll be a small area of lawn lost, there will be rain gardens planted, as well as this terrace area being more functional use for students, and will be permeably paved, together with a attenuation tank to help deal with water runoff from the site. Another image there. And just some views from inside. The legal agreement, and there'll be air quality and construction logistics monitoring fees. We'll also be ensuring a community use management plan is provided, because the outside of school hours that would be available for hire for other schools, as well as the local community if they want to have events there. So we'll make sure that's all covered, the community use travel plan. As such, officers are recommending that planning permission be granted subject to conditions and legal agreement. And then just on the addendum, there's the additional head of term to be added to the report with regards to community use management plan. And then in paragraph 6.15, change the title of the from Director of Planning and properly in place to executive director in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. We also have a speaker, Mr. Edward Wilson, who is the agent. As you cover 2 applications, you have up to 6 minutes.
Just a short statement on behalf of the school, really. The proposal is for the conversion of a gymnasium at the heart of Sacred Heart School in Hammersmith into a 225-seat theatre space. The gym dates from 1939 and is too narrow to properly use for sport. It is now redundant, having been replaced by a new sports facility on the north side of the school. The new theatre space proposed will be multi-purpose and can be used for drama teaching, performances, assemblies, music, rehearsal and lectures. The theatre can be accessed from a separate entrance on the east side of the school on Bute Gardens and will be available for a wide range of community uses out of school hours, including music and drama. The theatre will have an assisted natural ventilation system that makes use of a raised void below the terrace and above tree roots for air supply. The proposals include an adjoining theatre foyer built from an exposed timber frame with a latticed timber roof. The foyer has similar flexibility to the theatre space and can be used by pupils as an informal cafe and seating area during the day, as well as a rehearsal space. The reuse of an existing building with assisted natural ventilation, together with the construction of the extension in a carbon capturing timber frame, make this a sustainable proposal to create the new teaching spaces required. The new foyer will enable the theatre to operate independently for external hire and community use. Landscaping is included in the proposals with a small new terrace for pupil and audience use, with additional trees, planting and soakaway drainage to reduce water runoff. The school is in urgent need of the new facilities and would be excited to start the project.
Thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind turning the microphone off, just a bit. Thank you very much. We can now move straight to questions from members of the committee. Any questions on this item? Councilor, come in.
Thank you. Can you pull up the CGI of the glass placement? And have you got the picture of the existing, or whatever it's called, Stewart building? From the outside. Now the inside, I think everybody can agree is dated, but it's quite a nice dilapidated. But the outside is, to me, has merit. And I have a predisposition towards educational facilities in this borough anyway. I have absolutely no problems with the repurposing, and I will be supporting the planning application. But I cannot see how, if we go back to the external picture of the new one that you just showed, glass, the CGI of the glass monstrosity. I cannot, in all good conscience, in myself, say that that preserves and enhances the listed buildings. I will be voting for the planning application, and I can't bring myself to vote against the listed building consent, but I will be abstaining because I cannot, in good conscience, say that that preserves and enhances the listed building.
Thank you. Alan, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. So just to be clear, can we go forward now just to the supplementary document, supplementary plan? So in terms of the actual fabric of the main building, the extent of demolition to facilitate the new building, if we go forward to the elevation, the building itself is preserved in terms of the elevation, so it is just the window openings that are basically repurposed for access. The building itself isn't the most fundamental part of the listing, it's part of the group listing. And again, that's why on balance we're taking a view that this extension is considered appropriate. So to repurpose and to provide this new facility for the school campus it is in the kind of second quadrangle of the school. It's not the most important function, but I think that's why we've taken the view that this is an appropriate development in terms of its quality as well. And again, we've got conditions rating to details to hopefully give some more certainty over that.
I appreciate all of that, and I'm not going to vote against the planning permission. I'm not voting against the changes to the existing listed building. It's this new building in the curtilage, and it's completely surrounded. And I am applying slightly different weight, and I won't vote against it. But I hope that officers can understand how, especially those with long memories, how I do take a slightly different line with listed buildings, having been brought up in one in the borough.
I mean, just to confirm, Councillor, again, this application has been subject to revisions to modify the scheme in a manner that we feel. Yeah, I mean, the original scheme did include quite a lot of brick detail in the kind of sought to marry in with the original, which I think was slightly problematic in terms of the different brick choices around the campus itself. So we've tried to come with a more contemporary approach that kind of differentiates between historic and new development.
All I will just quickly say is I bumped into Barbara Vader the other month. I know. I just wondered what her view would have been on this. Sorry,
That's it.
Your
No.
time.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, or encounters on the street? Councillor Pastor Tilbury.
Very quick from me. I note that the 20th Century Society has been quite against this. Are you able to give a bit more light on why and why we don't have to worry about that? I know they're not a statutory consultee, but they're pretty good at judging and preserving what's important.
So I'm not sure in terms of the representation. Let me just check this because I think it may have been on the original submission. Let me just check. Yeah, I'm not sure if that was a revised consultation or hold on. So I'm not sure if that was on the original or the updated proposals. I mean, again, we have given the consultation comments weight. Again, I think generally this is a scheme where it's something that we're taking on balance in terms of the view of what a contemporary extension should be for this proposal.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If there's no further questions or comments, we can move straight on to voting. First on item 8, and then on recommendation 1 for item 8. Councillor Trehi, are you voting for, against, or not voting?
For.
Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pascal Tilbury? For. Councillor Carmel? And I will also be voting for. And then on whether recommendation 2 in the report is agreed, Councillor Trehi?
For.
Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pascal Tilbury? Councillor Carmel? And I will also be voting for, and therefore this item is approved. The connected one, item 9, which is in the listed building consent. Councillor Trehi, are you voting for, against, or not voting on recommendation 1 of the report? For. Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pascal Tilbury? Councillor Carmel?
Not voting.
And I will be voting for. And on whether recommendation 2 in the report is agreed, Councillor Trehi?
For.
Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter?
For.
Councillor Pascal Tilbury? Councillor Carmel? I will be voting for, and therefore this item is also approved. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Neil. Item number 10, the Matrix Studios. Roy Sagbapar will be presenting the report when you have a moment. If you wouldn't, yeah, okay, it's fine.
It's the matrix one, yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to draw members' attention to the addendum on this item for the matrix. Just really to highlight one particular reference that's on page 366. The recommendation refers to Director of Planning and Property, and it should refer to the Executive Director of Place. Otherwise, it's just a minor tweak. Okay. So this application relates to 2 additional floors at roof level and for the creation of office floor space, some solar panels on the roof lights, erection of ground and first floor extensions, and various alterations to the facades. Notably, there was an application that was approved in 2025 for a very similar proposal. The main difference being that that proposal involved 1 additional floor, slightly less floor space. The current proposal involves 2 stories rather than 1, and a slightly higher increase in the height by 1.6 meters, and notably an uplift in floor space. So this is the application site highlighted in orange on the left-hand side. You can see it's surrounded by residential on 3 sides, and then to the rear there's a school property, which is the École Marie de Olic. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but essentially it's a listed building, grade 2, with a playground, foreground, and the application site is highlighted in red on the right-hand side, and the site is also in a conservation area, the Fulham conservation area. You can see a series of photographs here. Start at the top left, you can see the building in the central location, my cursor, in this location here, surrounded, if you like, on the U-shaped by residential properties, and then to the south of that building is the playground, the school, and you can see the school building on the right image on the top, which is the listed building, and the playground and the forecourt, and then the buildings that are relevant to the application site on the right-hand side. This is the entrance to the site on Peterborough Road on the bottom left. So Peterborough Road is at the top here, and you can see that the building itself is pretty much a backland location from the street frontage in Peterborough Road. This is a view on the right-hand side of the rear of the site from the playground. This is just trying to highlight what the difference is. So on the left is the existing buildings, on the right-hand side is what's been proposed, highlighted in yellow. The areas that have been approved previously on 2025 permission are highlighted in yellow at the bottom of that image. And then you've got what's been proposed and what's been approved. So if you're looking north, on the south side of this image is Studridge Street. And the image on the bottom is what was approved previously. You can see the roof form. So the building ground floor effectively is some minor extensions in this area. But essentially, it's all this sort of grey matter at above ground floor. And then on the top left, you can see the proposed roof form. We've got an additional floor in this area here, which is not reflected in the bottom image. But notably, you've got some roof lights. You've got some windows here, which are being designed to mitigate any overlooking to the neighbouring property. These are 15 metres, within 15 metres, or are 15 metres. The other windows, the nearest windows here are more than 18 metres away, so there's no impact. So the main point really here is that the overall height has increased by 1.6 metres, but the body of the one of the floors is actually within the roof that was a void previously. Again, this is just another image from the other side, from Clancarty, which is in the sort of south side of these images. The bottom right shows what was approved, and the top left shows what's being looked at in this scenario. You can see the series of solar panels and then the recessed areas, and then there's just a general increase in height. Sorry? It's not showing? Stopped. Stopped. Great. Is it the internet? Is
rejoin the meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Let's have a look. I don't know how we did that. That one.
The internet connection just cut out. We got it back on, but we then got to go through. Yeah.
What's that one? That's what I copied. Here we are. Sorry, apologies. We're back on. So apologies for the interruption. So the image on the bottom right is the scheme as approved. And then the image on the top left is the scheme that's being proposed. And so the main difference between the two is there's an additional floor and then slight change to the height of the building. So this is a cross section. So on the left-hand side, you've got Studgeridge Street, and then you've got Glencarty on the right-hand side. The existing height of the building is in orange, and then you've got this green dotted line, which was the height of the approved extension, and then the sort of light green area above is the area that's being sought, in this case, additional space, which is the difference between that and the previous was 1.6 metres, but the difference overall is about 4 metres. Here's just some views around the site. So the left-hand side is this application site in its context, and then from the street on the bottom left, you've got a view from Peterborough Road, and you've got the equivalent view on the right-hand side, the CGI image. So the views are quite discrete of the building. And then the top right-hand image is a view of the development from Glencarty Road. And if you look, again, this is where my cursor is, hopefully you can see on the top left image, this is a view through the playground at this level. So it's, again, it's a very discrete long-range view, but yeah, it's very much in the background of the context. Series of floor plans. So the area highlighted in blue here is where essentially the single-story extensions would be at ground floor. And then you've got the first floor changes internally, and then you've got the new floors at second and third floor. So overall, in terms of objections, we had 24 objections concerned about the impact on the conservation area, the impact on listed building, bulk massing, etc., overdevelopment. Essentially, all of those things were pretty much the same as what members have seen previously on the previous permission. So the slight increase in height we feel is modest and still sympathetic to the conservation area and to the setting of the listed building. In terms of daylight and sunlight, there's no additional harm or worsening of the existing scenario. There's no worsening of the sense of enclosure. There's no concerns about privacy or noise. They're all controlled by appropriate conditions. Traffic impacts, again, we'll consider previous on the 2025 applications, not consider that the increase in floor space would result in any significant change. And there's some comments about insufficient consultation. There's been quite a bit of consultation at pre-app and during the application stage on this proposal. The other matters are not material to planning. I've just sort of said most of this already, so I can just pass on this. Anything to draw attention to is the sustainability, the 66% reduction in CO2 emissions with a £28,000
payment in lieu, and much of that is picked up in the Section 106. So you've got 10% apprenticeships, 10% local procurement, affordable workspace being provided, 100 square metres of which 20 will be 20% below market rate in perpetuity. And then you've got some trees as a result of this site being a major application rather than a below the threshold. So there's a £46,000 contribution towards some trees. And then there's some sections 278 in relation to some highway works and then some monitoring. And that's it. So we're looking to recommend that for approval, subject to committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roy. We have Mr. Duncan Thompson, the applicant, to speak. I appreciate your patience with us tonight, and this is 3 minutes for you to speak on this.
Chair, councillors, good evening. My name is Duncan Thompson, and I'm one of the directors of Matrix Studios. You may remember I spoke to you previously when you considered our earlier application. Today is a brief update on that scheme rather than a new proposal. You'll be familiar with Matrix. We've been part of the Parsons Green community for over 20 years, and before that, the UK music industry since 1977. Today, we're home to 50 businesses, around 70% in the creative industries, many of them local. When you considered our previous application, you supported our clear vision to provide space for tenants to grow, ensure no material harm to neighbours or heritage, and significantly improve our sustainability. This application stays firmly within that vision. What we're proposing today is not a new scheme, but a refinement of the one you've already approved. Through detailed design, we identified unused space within the approved route. By making a modest adjustment to the ridge height, we can introduce an additional level within that same roof without changing the footprint or the relationship with our neighbours. So this is not a fundamental change, but a more efficient use of the space already accepted in principle. The benefits are clear. We will deliver an additional 900 square metres of workspace, including 100 square metres of affordable space, helping us retain the creative businesses that rely on us. At a time when build and operating costs are rising, this additional space also helps us keep running costs down and rent accessible for our tenants. The scheme also delivers significant sustainability improvements, including carbon reduction, green roofs, and renewable energy. I understand that residents have concerns, particularly around height and amenity, but these have been carefully tested. The additional level is contained within the roof and designed to avoid overlooking light spill and loss of daylight. This is why officers conclude there is no unacceptable impact on amenity, no harm to heritage, and is fully policy compliant. Ultimately, this is about long-term stewardship. Matrix is not a speculative development, it is a long-standing part of this community and needs to evolve to survive. The proposal allows us to support our tenants, provide space for new ones, and secure the future of our unique creative hub in the borough. So this evening, you're not being asked to reconsider the principle of development, but simply to approve a revised design that optimises the site and helps secure our long-term future. On that basis, I respectfully ask members to support your officer's recommendation and grant permission. Thank you.
And on 3 minutes, thank you very much. We move on to questions from members of the committee. Are there any questions? Councillor Kamel?
Thank you. Could I just so a lot of the objections seem to be about height and bulk and so forth, and effect on the surrounding properties. Could you give me 3 figures, please, which is the extant AOD, the approved AOD, and this application AOD, so I can gauge the differences in heights, please?
I don't have those figures to hand, but what I can tell you is on screen you can see that the difference between each of those that you've mentioned, if you like, the orange is the existing roof form, and the dotted green line is the approved extension, which is about 4 meters above the orange line. And then you've got the extra additional space that's being sought in this case, which is the light green area above the dotted line, which is about 1.6 meters above the height of the approved area.
Just doing it by eye, would it be fair to say that the difference between extant and proposed looks about what, 45% higher?
Well, if I sort of look at the ground floor, you could say it could be about 3.5, 4 meters high. If you look at the next floor, it could be about 3 meters high. That's 6.5. And if you add the floors on top, I mean, if you see the orange line in terms of the existing building, if you like, that increase in height between what was approved is about 4 meters, but essentially you're going from the highest bit. Yeah. Yeah. So I would say there's probably about 11 meters, maybe. Yeah.
I did have concerns about coming into this, but having listened to the presentation and seen it, I think I've my concerns have been assuaged over the design and impact. I will just make the point that members of this committee will know that I dislike people who just put in multiple applications. I think this is the 5th application since 2023, but notwithstanding that, I don't think it'll have, I don't think the harm that it'll cause is outweighed by the benefits, and I'll be supporting this.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? In that case, we can move straight on to voting. First, on whether recommendation 1 in the report, page 366 is agreed. Councillor Treyer, are you voting for, against, or not voting? For. Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter? For. Councillor Pascal-Tilbury? For. Councillor Carmel? For. And I will also be voting for. And then on recommendation 2, on the same page of the report, Councillor Treyer? For. Councillor Melton? For. Councillor Painter? For. Councillor Pascal-Tilbury? For. Councillor Carmel? For. And I will also be voting for, and therefore the item is approved. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. And we move on to our final item, which is item 11, the chapel on Archer Road. And Royce, I will be introducing the report.
Just go file open. Neil send us did you send us a presentation? Did you send us a presentation?
No, sorry. No, that one. I don't achieve that one. Yes. What's that third one? One above it? One above it? What's the one above it? Thank you. And then
yeah, click up.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies. Okay, so this application relates to the chapel building on Archel Road. There is a slight addendum, which I should just refer to. Once again, it's the recommendation 1. It's the delete the reference to Director of Planning and Property, replace with Executive Director of Place. There's also a support letter that was provided by Councillor Chabot-Verdier, which is included summarised on the addendum. and there's some corrections in the report. Also, there are 2 new conditions, one relating to sound insulation and one relating to restriction on the external play area or the hours, and then some deletions on to paragraph 6.58 and 6.59. Proposal relates to the change of use for the Grenadian consulate from sui generis to a nursery, and the nursery would include 80 preschool pupils up to 5 years old and 35 staff. There are no external alterations to the building. This is the application site on the left-hand side, highlighted in red, the junction with Turneyville Road and Archel Road. On the right-hand side, you can see the site sits in this location where my cursor is, within the Turneyville Chesson Conservation Area. This is an aerial shot on the building on the left-hand side with the steps going up to the building, and there's an elevation facing Archel Road and Turneyville Road on this junction. There's steps going up. This is the elevations in architect format. These are the proposed floor areas. You've got some toddler space at lower ground floor and staff areas. You've got preschool areas at the mezzanine level with some void areas, not the whole depth of the floor space. You've also got a baby room at ground floor level, and then some small offices at the mezzanine level at ground floor. This is just showing you a cross section of where all those floor areas fit in. There were some representations received, 2 objections, 2 comments which were neutral, 4 letters of support. Essentially, the suggestion that the nurseries, there's no demand for the nursery, and surrounding streets might not be able to cope with the increased traffic. The letter of support welcomed the wider community benefits of a nursery, also activating a vacant building, and the acknowledgement that the traffic impact will be quite modest on this location. The neutral comments just generally say that the proposals are positive and subject to conditions, there's no objections. In terms of planning assessment, loss of the office to nursery has wider public benefits and is acknowledged as something that is welcomed in a local plan. There are no design alterations, so there's no harm in terms of impact on the character of the conservation area. In terms of residential amenity, there's no impact. There are some conditions attached which relate to sound insulation and external play area, as are picked up in the addendum. In terms of highways, the full transport assessment has been carried out because of the change of use. The site is in a PTAL 6A, which is good public transport, car-free development. A school travel plan has been secured and monitored to secure a sustainable means of transport. 90%, at minimum 90% will be by walking and cycling. 14 cycling spaces are provided on street. There will be staggered drop-off pickups between 8 AM and 10 AM and 4:30 and 6:30 PM, and the servicing delivery is as existing and will be secured by condition. In terms of heads of terms, the travel monitoring will be secured by the heads of terms in the legal agreement. There's a £3,000 contribution towards monitoring years 1, 3 and 5 and on opening. And then there's also some section 278 arrangements for the works of the highway, and then ensuring that staff don't have any parking permits. All that is secured by the section 106. And then the recommendation is that the application be approved, subject to committee's resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roy. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Please.
Thank you. Well, I've got no particular problems with this application for the thing. I just wanted to pass a comment about the sorrow of losing one of our only 2 consulates. Although I do accept that Bedford Row is a more prestige location than Archel Road, but it is a nice building. It's going to be maintained on the outside, in effect, and no possible reason to do it. And I wish them well.
Thank you very much. Any further comments, questions? In that case, we can move straight to voting. First, on whether recommendation 1 in the report is agreed. Councillor Trey, are you voting for, against, or not voting?
For.
Councillor Melton. 4. Councillor Painter.
4.
Councillor Tilbury. 4. Councillor Kamal. 4. I will also be voting for. And then on whether recommendation 2 in the report is agreed, Councillor Trey. 4. Councillor Melton. 4. Councillor Painter. 4. Councillor Tilbury. 4. And Councillor Kamal. 4. And I will also be voting for, and therefore the item is approved. Before we bring this meeting to a close, obviously we have the election upon us, and this brings the end of the last 4 years of sessions we've had and the different councillors. But I think most importantly, it also brings a premature end to the tenure of one of our longest-standing members of the committee, in Councillor Kamel, who has been here for how many years? 32 years. And I've personally always found invaluable both the institutional memory that he brings, which I think he always overestimated how much everyone else shared it, whether it was Wesley or officers or us, and experience and the passion, which is not something that a lot of people have on these items. And we'll definitely miss him, although obviously there is a chance that the wise voters of Wendell Park will elect him to the position, at which point I'm sure none of us will be here. We wish you, I think, on behalf of everyone, we wish you all the best. And I think you wanted to say something as well.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for those kind words. I just wanted to thank the officers for their many kindnesses and patience with me, shall I say, over the many years that I've been here, and I shall miss some of the more good-hearted exchanges that we've had, and I wish you well. And I just wanted to particularly thank the officers for everything they've done, and if you could spread that round the department as well for those who've been here for a little while, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for attending the meeting. The draft minutes will be published on the website shortly and will be formally approved at the next meeting.